So let's dig into the AMD announcement. We're recording this on Thursday, so day before you hear about it. So it was today. It was announced today.
Yeah.
But it was an AMD announcement. I just clarified. AMD announcement, but HP and Acer both put out devices, so they kind of had pressers as well that went out.
It's like a partnership kind of thing.
Yeah.
They all
coordinated attack.
These chips are going to be fast. And you said in the press release they kind of compared themselves with 11th gen Intel devices. So kind of slotting between 11th gen and then 12th gen Alder Lake devices. And so we don't have any of the final product Alder Lake devices yet. We're still waiting on those. Those are the announcements that we had at CES.
Yep.
And
we unboxed them, we tested them, but those were early pre-production stuff.
We've got one in our hands that's, again, an early pre-production model that we can't talk about yet. But it was made clear, like, this is early, so it won't be out for probably a couple months either. We got the other ones that we've had around the office, were CES related, I'm pretty sure. It's cool to see Alder Lake, and we know that it's going to be fast, but it could be faster, or maybe it won't be quite as fast, but we don't know, like, what real-life battery life will be once it's all tuned and ready to go.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll see the first... to market Alder Lake Chromebook and the Dragonfly. They made mention, HP did in their press release, they made mention of the Dragonfly again. And these two new devices that they put out with their release was the Elite C640 G3 and then the C645 G2. So we had both of these last year, right? Yeah. I don't know that we even talked about the 640, last year's 640.
That's when I reviewed one of them.
That was the original.
Yeah.
The first C640, and had a kind of crap screen on it.
But it was way overpriced.
Yeah, it was super weird. And it was one of those like, hey, we're going to make this for enterprise, and it never went to consumer markets or anything, so it was always inflated in price, and for what you got, it just didn't make sense. They've really done a good job this year, especially with both of these devices. They've put in the C645, it's got, options for Ryzen 3, 5, and 7, this new Zen 3 architecture, so Ryzen 5000C series chips. But apart from that, mostly the 645 and 640 are the same. The Intel one has a bit of AI built in for the microphones it's what they're doing with Alder Lake. Basically, it has one of the cores can handle background ambient noise. So when you're on a call, it can knock all that stuff down. So like the Dragonfly, some of the stuff they showed off with it was bad lighting, or you're sitting where the window's behind you. Imagine like what cameras on phones can do right now, where they can smartly take HDR and expose certain parts to make the whole thing look good. Take that plus, better tuned microphones that, don't pick up everything in the room behind you. And they're good for collaboration.
Which, by the way,
kind of stuff.
MediaTek and Qualcomm, if you all aren't working on that, you should be, because ARM excels in that area.
Clearly,
all
our phones have that.
All of their chips have AI just baked in. That should, like the new Duet and all that stuff. The cameras on those should be great.
That's
just
because
the cameras and mic pickup should be fantastic because it's baked into the hardware of it. Like, all I got to do is tap into it.
Let's talk about the Acer a little bit.
Yeah.
So
Gabe covered down.
The Acer ones, I don't want to say it's better or worse. It offers a lot of the same features you can get from the Ryzen 3 up to the Ryzen 7. If it's 5, 8, 128, you're looking at something comparable to the current Spin 713. Might even be a little bit better because we'll have this published later this week, but AMD did their own internal benchmarks, and most of the tests they did against the 11th gen Intels were anywhere from 12 to 25% better performance as far as battery life, graphics. I think multitasking was one of them they did. So it's going to be it should perform better than the current Spin 713. If you can go to Best Buy and get the Ryzen 5 8128, you're not going to get that 3x2 screen, obviously, but if you can get it for $650, it's going to be a good device.
Yeah.
So if you had a what would be the comparable Intel that they've compared these chips to that you all said?
The 11th
gen.
So the current gen, the ones.
So if there's, let's say someone's looking for a device and they see, so when are these both going to be available?
Third quarter for the Acer.
So third quarter
next month for
June.
Yeah. So this summer. So if somebody's looking and they see that 11th gen Intel device that has similar specs or this one, what would be the advantage or disadvantage of getting the AMD versus that Intel device?
Until we test them, It's hard to tell.
Don't really know.
But the GPU probably will be better. I would think on the AMD
over Iris Xes.
Over the 11th gen one, I think.
That's what stinks is we really have no way to test just the GPU. I wish we did. I've tried. There are some Linux tests that will do some basic stuff, but all it's doing is giving you frame rates and
but it's going to be comparable.
Right.
They're a little bit faster than the comparable. So like in my head, I would say the Ryzen 5 goes against a Core i5 kind of.
Okay,
that's the idea. Yeah. Ryzen 7, i7, Ryzen 3, i3 kind of deal. And I would say across the board, they're probably each a little bit faster than the 11th gen. But then when Alder Lake comes out, Alder Lake's going to
Are the AMDs, are the Ryzen's fanned?
Should be, yeah.
Should be, yeah.
I know that
Radeon graphics. So
yeah, I'm pretty sure that one we got our hands on.
Thought it did. I couldn't remember for sure though.
And so I mean it'll come down to like sale prices and all that kind of stuff. And then two, we need to see for sure, do these Ryzens drop back in performance like the Ryzen 3 3000 series did.
Yeah, and
hopefully
that was
not.
I wasn't going to say it, but
that was an issue with
a big issue
with throttling when unplugged.
Right.
Yeah, it was insane.
Which was by design, but
and that's built on
which
the
it's a portable laptop, so in theory you're going to have it unplugged quite a bit.
Right.
Hopefully.
And so it's like, we're doing that to save
not.
battery. Well, sorry, but Intel has figured out a way not to have to do that.
Yeah.
And still getting the same types of battery life.
Because that's what the Acer is saying, up to 10 hours of battery life, which 10 hours on this level of chip is, if you get 10 hours out of this device, you're doing good.
And
but
it's performant. And so it's like.
But if it's going to give me 10 hours and I'm losing 30% of my
performance,
40% of
40% performance dip across the board.
Forget it. Give me the performance and I'll sacrifice the battery.
Yeah.
I don't expect to get that out of my Chromebook anyway. I mean, if I get 6-7 hours out of the CX9, I'm happy.
Now, for what it's worth, that we were seeing zero drop off with the one we got our hands on.
Right.
But we were informed, the battery hasn't been tuned on those HP devices at the time that we had them. So it may either not be throttling when it should have been. The battery life was pretty atrocious. It was like 4 hours, I think, is what it was tracking to get. But again, it was made clear to us, like, these batteries don't get tuned until it's one of the speakers and the batteries kind of get tuned up right before we ship.
Yeah, so half the time they just have a random battery slapped in them.
Right.
Anyways,
yeah, they'll swap the battery out right before they start
production. It's all about
production.
the board and the chip.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't want to draw any conclusions until we get one that is, manufacturer ready, sent to us by either Acer or HP. And again, like Abe said, if it's 7 to 10 hours of battery life of actual use, that's fine for devices that have this kind of performance.